Hello, and welcome back to All the Mods 9. We're going to be jumping into some more mechanism today. We worked through all of this here last episode to where we can craft these ultimate control circuits automatically. We've got our infusing factories running, we got a crusher, an enrichment chamber, and I also threw in a smelting factory. This is just processing all of our furnace recipes, and that goes nice and fast, so we don't have to worry about smelting anymore. Today though, we're going to be using this to progress through the rest of mechanism and unlock antimatter. This is going to be a long process. There's going to be quite a few multi-blocks involved. We're going to be doing some nuclear fusion and physics. It's going to be fun. And most of this is actually just going to be like crafting these blocks. Basically everything in here we have already access to. We just need to go about actually crafting the blocks and then making the fuel and stuff. So let's jump right into it. I do need to finish out the rest of this little quest line here to unlock the advanced mechanism quest. So this is just going to be us crafting all of these blocks to finish out that quest line. I don't think we're going to actually use them. So let me go ahead and get all of these recipes crafted up for all of the machines that we need to finish out this quest line. And like I said, we already have everything set up to craft all of these. It's just a matter of actually clicking and crafting them. Actually, I should probably bulk craft like a bunch of those alloys and stuff just to get them out of the way. Okay, I gotta make all of these too? Okay. That's fine. Actually, let me make a recipe for thermal evaporation blocks because I think we're gonna need quite a few of those. And then that way I can request a bunch of them. Okay, I think I've crafted up all the blocks that we need in order to progress into advanced mechanism. It does want us to actually start making some sulfur first, so we'll need to set up a little chemistry line for this. Getting the sulfur itself isn't too difficult. We just need to take some gunpowder and then we'll throw this into the chemical injection chamber with some hydrogen chloride. So I guess we'll set this up over here with the rest of our mechanism machines, and I need a little power here. Hydrogen chloride is going to be made by combining hydrogen and chlorine in the chemical infuser. So we'll throw that next to our chemical injection chamber. Hydrogen we're going to get by separating water into hydrogen and oxygen. And then chlorine is made by separating brine into sodium and chlorine. And lastly, brine is made in the thermal evaporation chamber just with some water. So we'll need to build that guy up too. So I guess we'll set this up first. Let's start with the thermal evaporation chamber. We just need a nice big box here. Actually, it needs to come one more out because it's a 4x4. And then 3 high, and it's hollow in the middle. And then we'll replace these 2 blocks in the front with the controller and a valve. And then we'll want 1 extra valve on the side to input the water. And we can see those kind of like red particles when the multi-block is formed to make sure that it's good. We can just use a sink and a fluid pipe to input some water. Now this should be turning our water into brine, but I'm not sure why it's not working yet. I will go ahead and connect this up to our electrolytic separator first though, and then we'll output from this. Okay, so it looks like in order to get this thermal evaporation chamber to work, we need one of these resistive heaters. Oh, I see. Okay, so we need to give this some power so that it starts heating up. And then with a extra fluid valve on the side, this will start transferring some power into the evaporation plant, and we start getting some brine. And then our brine should come out from here and go into this electrolytic separator to get us chlorine and sodium. The sodium I think we can just throw away for now. And then we'll also need to get some water into this electrolytic separator. Then we'll need some gas pipes to export the chlorine and the hydrogen that we're getting out of these. That's going to go into the chemical infuser. To get rid of all these extra liquids that we have stored up in here, we can just use a gauge dropper and click on there and clear it out so that we can start putting some water in. And I'm not too worried about making this look super pretty right now because we only need to get a little bit of sulfur, because we can make sulfur seeds out of this so that we can have an infinite amount of it. Now our hydrogen and chlorine should be in here making some hydrogen chloride. And then that can go into the chemical injection chamber, where we'll throw in a couple pieces of gunpowder. And then 4 pieces of sulfur should allow us to break all this down and turn this into sulfur seeds. So yeah, now we can break down all of the stuff we had before from making sulfur. And we can now get our actual setup going to unlock antimatter. With all this reactor mess that we're going to be doing, we need to prepare a little bit for any dangerous radiation that could happen. So we'll need a hazmat suit. This requires some lead and some different dyes. And there we go. There's our hazmat suit. Fortunately, we can't wear both of our armors at the same time. So we'll keep this on hand in case anything does happen. Now we can build our first multi-block here. This is going to be the fission reactor. And this is going to be real complicated to craft. All we need to do is throw both of these recipes into our crafting system, and then with all those recipes in there, we should be able to now request some reactor casings and some reactor glass. With the fusion reactor glass and casings, there are a couple other things we need to get this guy up and running. We need at least 4 of these reactor ports. We need 1 of these control rod assemblies, 2 of these fission fuel assembly, and then lastly, we need 2 of these fission reactor logic adapters. And now we should have everything we need to set this guy up. We're not going to be able to start running it just yet. We need to build this, and then we'll work on getting the fuel for it. We're just going to build a nice 5x5 empty cube. Actually, I'm going to move this one to this corner over here. Then we need to fill in all 6 sides of this with reactor glass. And then in the middle is where our fission fuel assembly and the controller that I made. At least I thought I made it. There we go. This is going to go right in the middle. We'll put the 2 fission fuel assemblies in the middle, and then the control rod on top. The fission reactor ports are going to go in the middle here on all 4 sides. We'll need to whip out the configurator to change 2 of these, 1 to output waste, which we can probably throw in the back here maybe. And then 1 is going to be changed to output coolant. And then lastly, for the 2 logic adapters, these are going to go in the back. And maybe we can move 1 of these to be in the front. Yeah, these don't have to go right in the middle. They can go anywhere where the glass is, I think. And then these 2 logic adapters we'll throw on the top and bottom here. And there we go. That is the reactor all built up. We can now open the inventory here and see its little GUI. So in here, we have 4 different fluids that we're going to be working with. We have coolant, fuel tank, the heated coolant as the output, and the output of waste. In order to get this thing running, we're going to need to put both a coolant in here and some fuel. The coolant can just be water, but for the fuel, we're going to need some of this fissile fuel in order to start running this thing. And this is going to output both steam and some nuclear waste. For the coolant, we can just use some water. We can use a sink for this and just have that input into 1 of these reactor ports. So if we throw this in here, this should start inputting some water. Perfect. Now we need to start producing some fissile fuel. And we're going to need 2 things to get this up and running. We're going to need both sulfur and uranium. Sulfur we have the seeds for, but we're going to have to make some uranium to get the seeds, which I believe this is just an ore in the world. So we should just need to go mining a little bit for some uranium and make the seeds out of that. Here we go. This is exactly what we're looking for right here. Uranium ore. We shouldn't need too much of this. So let me just smelt some of these up. And perfect. Now we should be able to take these and make seeds from them. So now that we have our uranium and sulfur ready to go, we need to start working with these in order to work our way towards fissile fuel. I suppose we can start with the uranium. We're going to take our uranium and put it into an enrichment chamber, which we can just do with an export bus on top of this. And then we'll set this to export uranium. We want uranium ingots specifically. And then we'll want to put a crafting card in this export bus to make sure that the system knows to craft uranium from the essence that we have. And then we'll just make a pattern for it. This should start enriching the uranium into yellow cake uranium. We're going to go ahead and output this into a chemical oxidizer. And we should be able to set this side, the right side to auto output, so that it immediately puts it into the chemical oxidizer and we don't need any pipes or anything. This is going to oxidize the yellow cake uranium into uranium oxide. That takes care of the uranium part of this. Now we need to do the same for sulfuric acid. We're going to start making sulfuric acid with the chemical oxidizer. And then we'll use an export bus to input sulfur. And then we'll need a crafting card for this too. Once that's in there, we should start getting some sulfur dioxide. This is going to go into a chemical infuser. And we'll also need a source of oxygen, which we can do with a sink into an electrolytic separator. We want to make sure we have our configuration for the outputs correct. So in the gases, we want to set the bottom to output the second slot, which is the oxygen. And then the same in the top of the infuser. We want this to be the second input. That should start pulling in the oxygen, and this should start making some sulfur trioxide. And then all of the hydrogen that we're getting out of this can go into a fluid trash can. Oh, I forgot about the magic of auto eject. Yeah, that should work. Our hydrogen should just go into this trash can right here, and everything should still be running perfect. We're then going to output the sulfur trioxide into another chemical infuser. Why is the hydrogen chloride going in there? Oh, just because that's what was in it before. Let's pipe this out real quick. And then we'll also need to input water vapor, which is made in a rotary condensator. We'll need to bring our water right down here. We want to click this little button in the top left to swap it to condensate the other direction. This will start producing some water vapor, and then outputting that into the chemical infuser with the sulfur trioxide, we'll start making some sulfuric acid. We didn't need to take our sulfuric acid and pump this into a chemical dissolution chamber. And then we're also going to need to get some fluorite for this recipe, which is another thing we have to go mining for, and then we can make seeds out of that too. Ah, perfect. Fluorite ore is exactly what we want. Now with our fluorite seeds set up, we just need to set an export bus on this chemical dissolution chamber. Once again with a crafting card, and we'll export fluorite from our system. There we go. That should put it in there, and this should start making some hydrofluoric acid. Now we can take our uranium oxide and hydrofluoric acid, put them together in a chemical infuser to start making some uranium hexafluoride. Oh, auto output is a beautiful thing. Could you imagine trying to do this with pipes? Lastly, we need an isotopic centrifuge, which will take our uranium and turn it into fissile fuel gas. And that completes the fissile fuel we need to run the reactor. We will need to take our fissile fuel from here and bring it into the machine. I'm just going to do this with some pressurized tubes to transport gas all the way from our fissile fuel maker to the reactor itself. And it should start inputting some of that fissile fuel into the reactor. Now we need to deal with the outputs before we fire this thing up. The coolant output is going to be heated steam, and we don't really have a use for that, so we're going to output it into a trash can. Although I'm not sure if we may need a pipe for this, just to be safe. And then the other output is going to be nuclear waste. We want to store this in a place where it won't get messed up too much. I'll just throw a bunch of these barrels below our base and hook up a pipe to this. Okay, it is a gas, so we need to swap these out for tubes. And then lastly, we need to set up the fail-safe just in case this thing doesn't work. To do this, we'll use a little bit of basic vanilla redstone. We want this bottom one to be set to critical damage. So that way, when the reactor is damaged pretty bad, it will output a redstone signal. This will go into a piston, and then on top we'll throw a gravity block. And then in front of this logic adapter, we want this one to be set to activation. And then we'll throw a server, if I can get it to place right. So then that way, when this gets activated, the redstone signal should power the piston and the sand, and then the observer should read that and turn it off. And I think we're safe to power this thing up now. We throw our hazmat suit on just in case, because anything could go wrong. I'm not sure. We may need to upgrade this pipe because it looks like this thing can hold a lot of water. I'm not sure how much it takes specifically, but I'll just throw a netherite pipe upgrade on this to see if that helps it. And then I think we should be safe to turn this thing on. The odds that something goes wrong right now is pretty high though. Activate. Yeah, it looks like we're working. It's heating up. This thing is kind of loud though. Not a big fan of that. I'm just not sure if it's... Oh yeah, it's working. Okay, it is producing some nuclear waste very slowly. So that is actually exactly what we wanted out of this. This thing is very loud though. I'm gonna make it muffle. Oh, okay, there's no block for that. We just open our inventory and click this little sound mute button. And then we can mute the fission reactor. Oh, that's so much better. Oh, we are getting some radiation though, I think. Oh, that's me taking fall damage because I don't have my suit on. Okay, if I change out my nuclear hazmat suit, am I gonna start taking some radiation? No, I think we're fine. Okay, cool. So now that this guy is working and we're getting some nuclear waste, we're going to take that waste and produce polonium and plutonium. And this is what's going to produce antimatter. So it looks like to craft this thing, we'll need to craft both plutonium and polonium first. Oh, that's complicated. Oh no. Oh, not a fan. To turn our nuclear waste into polonium, we need a solar neutron activator. This requires an HDPE sheet, and we need another little chemical line for this. It's kind of a long one too. I think we'll wait to do that till next episode though. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.